There's a question circulating quietly through Catholic circles that almost no one inside the Vatican wants to answer openly. Why would one of the most respected cardinals in the world privately encourage a journalist whose entire work revolves around questioning the legitimacy of the post-2013 papacy? This is not a rumor, not a leak from anonymous sources, not a conspiracy reconstructed from fragments. These are written emails, signed, preserved for years, and now public. The publication of these messages has detonated one of the most sensitive discussions in the Catholic world today, because they involve Robert Sarah, a figure universally respected among traditional Catholics, and they touch directly the most explosive, unresolved question of modern church history. Did Pope Benedict XVI truly resign the papacy validly in 2013? Or was something far more complex taking place behind the scenes? By the end of this video, you'll understand why 3 simple emails exchanged between an Italian journalist and a cardinal have reopened questions that many believed had already been buried forever, and why the silence surrounding them may matter even more than the messages themselves. Let's begin with the facts. In recent days, Italian journalist Andrea Cionci publicly released a series of private emails exchanged between 2021 and 2022 with Cardinal Sarah. Cionci is not an anonymous internet commentator. For years, he has dedicated his work almost entirely to one issue: the canonical validity of Benedict XVI's resignation. According to Cionci, Benedict never truly abdicated the papacy. Instead, he entered a state known in canon law as an impeded see, a condition where a pope remains pope legally, while being unable to govern freely. This distinction changes everything, because in Catholic canon law, the papacy is not simply an administrative role. It is an office, a munus. And according to Cionci, Benedict intentionally renounced only the ministerium, the practical exercise of power, without renouncing the munus itself. That distinction rests on one critical document, the Declaratio of February 11, 2013, the speech where Benedict announced his resignation. For years, traditionalist canonists have argued over a single detail. Benedict used the word ministerium, not munus. To ordinary Catholics, this may appear technical, but in canon law, technical precision matters enormously, because Canon 332, paragraph 2, specifies that a pope must renounce the munus freely and properly for a resignation to be valid. Cionci's thesis is radical. If Benedict never renounced the munus, then he never ceased being pope, which would mean that Pope Francis was never legitimately elected. And if Francis was not a legitimate pope, then every cardinal he created, every decree he issued, and potentially even the conclave electing Pope Leo XIV would become canonically questionable. This is why the issue is so explosive. It is not merely historical speculation, it strikes directly at the legal continuity of the modern church itself. Now here is where Cardinal Sarah enters the story. On April 9, 2021, after Cionci had published an article openly describing Francis as an anti-pope and defending the impeded see thesis, Cardinal Sarah's secretary responded personally. The message was brief, but devastatingly significant. His Eminence Cardinal Sarah has received your text and thanks you sincerely and blesses you from his heart. Pause for a moment. This was not an automated acknowledgement, not a generic office response. It was a personal reply from the office of one of the most influential cardinals in the world, to a journalist explicitly defending the invalidity of Francis's papacy. Then the correspondence continued. On July 10, 2022, Cionci contacted Sarah directly again to ask where he could send a copy of his new book, Codice Ratzinger, a book entirely dedicated to the thesis that Benedict XVI intentionally communicated his continued papal legitimacy through coded canonical language. This time, Sarah himself answered personally. "Thank you so much for your message. Pope Ratzinger is a teacher and a liturgical spiritual guide of exceptional depth. Thank you for your reflection. Here is my address with my prayers and blessing." Again, notice what does not happen. No correction, no warning, no distancing, no denial. And then comes the third message. On August 6, 2022, after receiving the book, Sarah's secretary wrote again, "His Eminence acknowledges receipt of a copy of your volume, Codus Ratzinger, and thanks you for your kind sending with the hope that it will enlighten consciences." That phrase spread like wildfire once published. May it enlighten consciences. Why would a cardinal write that about a book questioning the legitimacy of the reigning papacy? That is the question now shaking Catholic media. Because Sarah is not a reckless man. He is known precisely for caution, discipline, and theological seriousness. For years, traditional Catholics viewed him as one of the few senior Vatican figures consistently defending reverence, orthodoxy, and liturgical continuity. When Sarah speaks publicly, every word is measured carefully, which is precisely why these emails matter so much. Not because they prove Sarah explicitly supports the impeded see thesis, they do not, but because they prove beyond doubt that he was fully aware of it. He read the material, he received the arguments, he blessed the journalist, he encouraged the reflection, and over 4 years, he never publicly rejected the thesis. This silence becomes even more significant when placed beside recent developments, because according to reports circulating through Catholic legal circles, there is now an ongoing formal examination inside Vatican structures concerning the canonical validity of Benedict's resignation. That detail changes the atmosphere entirely. For years, critics dismissed impeded see arguments as internet speculation, but now, even the existence of formal canonical review suggests the matter has not disappeared quietly inside church institutions. At the same time, another figure entered the discussion. Former Italian magistrate Angelo Giorgiani reportedly sent Cardinal Pietro Parolin a detailed canonical analysis challenging the legitimacy of the 2025 conclave that elected Leo XIV. The objections are technical but serious. Too many cardinal electors, potential irregularities during conclave procedure, questions regarding cardinals appointed by Francis. Each issue individually might appear manageable. Together, they create a much larger picture, a church increasingly haunted by doubts about canonical legitimacy itself. And that is precisely why these Sarah emails exploded publicly, because they suggest that concerns once dismissed as fringe theories were at least known, discussed, and tolerated at extraordinarily high ecclesiastical levels. This is where the psychological dimension becomes important. For millions of ordinary Catholics, the papacy represents visible certainty, the stable center of ecclesial unity. If uncertainty enters there, everything feels unstable. Doctrine, authority, sacraments, obedience. The implications become enormous. That is why Vatican's silence has become increasingly difficult to sustain, because silence no longer calms speculation, it intensifies it. And perhaps this is the most fascinating aspect of the entire story. Cardinal Sarah never openly endorsed the impeded see thesis, but neither did he crush it. Instead, he responded with warmth, respect, blessing, and silence. And now, Catholics everywhere are asking the same dangerous question. Why? What do you think? Do these emails reveal hidden doubts inside the hierarchy, or are people reading too much into respectful correspondence between a cardinal and a journalist? Comment below. Amen. God bless you. The deeper one examines this controversy, the more obvious it becomes that the real issue is not simply 3 emails. The real issue is trust. Trust in institutions, trust in canonical procedures, trust in the visible unity of the Church itself. Because for centuries, Catholics were taught that the papacy functions precisely to prevent uncertainty regarding authority. The Pope is supposed to be the visible principle of unity, the point around which doctrinal continuity remains secure. And yet now, more than a decade after the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, millions of Catholics still debate whether that resignation was even valid. That alone reveals how extraordinary this moment truly is. Normally, disputed papacies belong to medieval history, the Great Western Schism, anti-popes, conflicting elections, imperial interference. Those are chapters Catholics expect to study in history books, not live through in real time. And yet the language surrounding the modern crisis increasingly resembles precisely those historical periods. Impeded see, invalid conclave, anti-pope, canonical defect. These are not ordinary theological disagreements. They are existential questions about the structure of ecclesiastical authority itself. This is why the correspondence involving Robert Sarah matters so profoundly. Because Sarah is not a fringe figure. He is not a rebellious bishop operating outside Rome. For decades he stood near the center of Vatican life itself. Former prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship, close collaborator of Benedict XVI. One of the most respected voices in global Catholicism, and above all, a man known for extreme caution. Sarah rarely improvises publicly. He weighs words carefully. That is precisely why his silence regarding Andrea Cianci's thesis now appears so significant to many Catholics. Because there are only a few possibilities. Either Sarah considered the arguments completely absurd, or he considered them serious enough not to dismiss publicly. And for traditional Catholics, that distinction changes everything. Particularly because the impeded see thesis itself did not emerge randomly. It developed from observable anomalies surrounding Benedict's resignation. The white cassock, the continued use of the papal name, the title Pope Emeritus, the apostolic blessing, statements about remaining spiritually within the enclosure of St. Peter. For many Catholics, these gestures always appeared unusual, almost intentionally symbolic, as if Benedict wished simultaneously to resign and not resign. And this ambiguity created fertile ground for alternative interpretations, especially among canon lawyers attentive to precise legal terminology. Because canon law depends entirely upon precision. One word can determine validity. One formula can invalidate an entire juridical act. This is why the distinction between munus and ministerium became central. According to Cianci and others defending the impeded see theory, Benedict deliberately left clues. Not openly, not dramatically, but subtly. A kind of coded canonical communication indicating coercion or impediment. Critics call this interpretation absurdly speculative. Supporters call it the only explanation for Benedict's unusual behavior after 2013. And here the story becomes even more psychologically fascinating. Because regardless of whether the thesis is true, millions of Catholics now perceive the ambiguity itself as real. That perception alone has consequences. The Church depends not merely on legal validity, but on moral credibility. And moral credibility weakens when uncertainty appears unresolved. This is exactly why the Vatican's long silence has become so dangerous. For years, Rome largely avoided engaging directly with impeded see theories, perhaps believing silence would starve them of attention. But silence often creates the opposite effect, especially in the digital age. Questions unanswered publicly continue expanding privately, particularly when visible anomalies remain unexplained convincingly. This explains why Andrea Cianci became such an important figure inside traditional Catholic media, not because every Catholic accepts his conclusions, but because he treated the issue systematically. Thousands of articles, hundreds of conferences, formal petitions, detailed canonical analysis. His work created the impression of an ongoing investigation rather than isolated speculation. And then came the emails. The crucial point is not that Sarah endorsed Cianci explicitly. He did not. The crucial point is that Sarah treated the work respectfully despite fully understanding its implications. That detail cannot be minimized, especially because the implications are staggering. If Benedict remained Pope until death, then Francis was never Pope. If Francis was never Pope, then the cardinals he appointed lack legitimacy. If those cardinals participated in the conclave electing Pope Leo XIV, then Leo XIV's election itself becomes questionable. This is why the issue terrifies so many Catholics, because it threatens to destabilize the visible continuity of the Church at the highest level imaginable. And yet, supporters of the impeded see thesis argue something equally important. Truth matters more than appearances. They insist that ecclesiastical peace built upon invalid juridical acts cannot endure indefinitely. That argument resonates strongly among traditional Catholics, increasingly distrustful of modern Vatican governance, particularly after years of liturgical restrictions, doctrinal controversies, and synodal ambiguity. Many already felt institutionally alienated. The resignation controversy intensified that alienation dramatically, and this is where another layer emerges. The growing divide between institutional Catholicism and grassroots traditional Catholicism. Rome often views these theories as dangerous destabilization. Traditionalists increasingly view them as necessary investigation. Both sides believe they are defending the Church, but their understanding of defense differs radically. Institutional authorities prioritize visible unity and obedience. Traditionalists increasingly prioritize doctrinal and canonical certainty above institutional stability. This divergence explains why figures like Sarah become so symbolically important, because he stands between both worlds, deeply Roman, deeply traditional, loyal to the Church, yet visibly aware of modern confusion. Traditional Catholics see in him someone who understands their concerns without openly embracing rebellion. That moral authority matters enormously, especially during periods of ecclesiastical instability. History shows this repeatedly. In moments of crisis, Catholics often cling less to bureaucratic structures and more to trusted spiritual figures. Athanasius during Arianism, Catherine of Siena during the Avignon papacy, the confessors under communist persecution. Institutional legitimacy alone rarely resolves spiritual crises fully. Moral credibility becomes decisive. This is one reason why the publication of Sarah's emails created such shockwaves, because they suggest that even at the highest levels, certain questions were never considered entirely closed. And if that is true, the implications are profound. Not necessarily because the impeded see thesis will triumph, but because the existence of unresolved doubt itself weakens ecclesiastical confidence, particularly among younger Catholics already skeptical of institutions generally. And perhaps this is the deepest paradox of all. The modern Church often emphasizes dialogue, openness, and transparency. Yet on the most explosive canonical question of recent Catholic history, silence still dominates. That silence now feeds endless speculation. Every unexplained detail becomes symbolically charged. Every gesture gets reinterpreted. Every old statement receives new scrutiny. And the longer uncertainty persists, the more emotionally invested many Catholics become in competing narratives. Some believe questioning papal legitimacy threatens the unity of the Church directly. Others believe refusing investigation threatens truth itself. That is the battlefield now emerging beneath the surface. Not merely left versus right, not merely progressive versus traditional, but stability versus certainty. And history teaches that such conflicts rarely disappear quickly. The Great Western Schism lasted nearly 40 years. Entire nations supported rival claimants sincerely. Saints themselves disagreed publicly. The Church survived, but only after immense confusion and suffering. This historical memory explains why many Catholics today feel increasingly anxious, because they recognize echoes of older crises inside modern debates. Perhaps not identical, but disturbingly familiar. And now Cardinal Sarah's correspondence has intensified those fears dramatically. Not because he declared Leo XIV illegitimate. He never did. But because he demonstrated something many never expected. That one of the Church's most respected cardinals was fully aware of these theories, interacted warmly with their principal advocate, and never publicly crushed the discussion. For some Catholics, that means nothing. For others, it changes everything. What do you think? Do these emails reveal hidden uncertainty within the hierarchy, or simply the charity of a cardinal responding respectfully to difficult questions? Comment below. Amen. God bless you.